Okay guys, and welcome back to another Student Questions Answered. Now this one is again from Neil, and what Neil has is a colossal great data set with a unique 13-digit reference, mostly living in column A, occasionally bleeds over to column B or column C, and I think he said D in the question, but I've just coded this for A, B and C. But when you see the code, you can see how easy it is to modify. So this is completely mocked up data. What we have is 4016 lines, and we have some unique MPAN numbers. This is for the power industry, so they're all 13-digit numbers. Again, this is just completely randomly created data. And what we should have in this colossal file is 365 entries for each unique MPAN. And you can see that we have half-hourly meter readings, again totally made up, just using a rand between, all the way over to column AY. So it's a fairly big data set. And the aim of the exercise is to go through this and create something like this. And this is a book, a new workbook, that has all of the particular MPAN readings for each unique entry, all the way down to 365. There's probably a quicker way of doing that. There we go, 365, with each one having a tab of its own, and they're all in there. So let me close that and let's talk through the logic of this. So the first thing that we need to do is create a unique list of 13-digit codes out of columns A, B and C. Then using that unique list, what we need to do is create a new workbook and add a sheet for each of those unique entries. Then what we need to do is go through each of those unique entries in turn, loop through this entire data set, hopefully capturing all of the entries from column A, but if not, bouncing over to column B and repeating, bouncing over to column C and repeating, until we've caught all 365 entries. And as we capture each one, what we want to do is write it to the new workbook, to the appropriate sheet. And then at the end we want to add a header, which is always the same from here. So let's have a look at how we create that code. And this is it just here. So we have a few variables. We have x as integer, which is just going to count the number of rows, y as integer, which is going to count each time we do a copy and paste, each time we found a match. My limit is going to count how many times this MPAN appears in column A, B and C, and then we can check y against my limit. So if we happen to have filled all 365 entries by the end of column A, or somewhere down column A, we're not going to have to carry on down column A and then B and then C. We can just exit that loop. My temp is just going to hold the unique MPAN number, and my new book, we're just going to use that to capture the name of the new workbook as it's created. So my keyboard's a little dodgy today. It's a wireless keyboard, so this is the third time I've tried to record this lecture. I'm hoping it's not going to get stuck. So firstly, make sure we're on the right sheet. Sheet 1, select. Obviously, if it's not called sheet 1, change the name. Now here, we're going to capture the number of rows in this complete data set. So we're just going to map it to the variable y, and we're going to say range a1.current region, which you'll remember picks the whole region, .rows.count, so when we F8 over that, x is now worth 4016. Now we're going to do something that I frequently do when I'm doing work like this. I add a new sheet temporarily. So I'm going to use sheets add after sheets 1. 1 is the index number, so this is going to appear at position 2. And then I'm going to rename that sheet to scratch, and I always called my sheets scratch, and then at the end we're going to delete this. Now the next thing we need to do is get all of column A from A1 to AX, which you'll remember is how many rows of data we have. So copy everything from sheet 1, range A1 to A4016, and copy that to sheet scratch at position A1. So when I hit F8, there you go, you can see that we've got a boatload of data all the way down here. And then what we're going to do is do the same for column B and then column C. So this time we're going to go sheets 1 range B1 to BX, which is 4016, and copy this to sheets scratch, this sheet, range A 1,048,575, which is almost at the very bottom. Go end XL up, which is going to get us to the bottom of this newly pasted data set, and offset 1, and that's going to get us our first blank row. So that's done that's done A, that's done B, and then we're going to do the same with C. Notice that we're coming from the bottom up and then offsetting 1. Now what we're going to do is use the remove duplicates, and you can find this in the data menu, and this is just butchered from a quick recorded macro. So I'm just going to do the whole of column A, remove duplicates, and hit F8. Now I have all of the unique entries. Now I'm going to make sure I'm at the start of the range by selecting A1. And here's our first loop. Loop to test for a length of characters of 13. So it's a do loop, so we're going to do while the active cell doesn't equal blank. What we're going to say is if the length of the active cell doesn't equal 13, then delete the entire row. If it does equal 13, move down and loop. So we're just going to go through that. We'll step through. So here are our unique entries. Now it's going to start deleting. So we've got a boatload to do, so I'm just going to debug and run to cursor on that. Here what we're going to do, and this is again butchered from a recording macro, down here from A1 to A11, we're going to paste a countif formula. So I'm going to say range B1 to B range A 1,400,000 and whatever it is thousand end Excel up row, and that's going to give me the row number of the last data entry. So effectively this says B1 to B11. Paste in a countif formula. Now if I just click on this formula here, you can just see it's the sheets one, columns A through C, and look in here, so you can see that we have 365 different entries for this particular MPAN across the whole of A, B and C. Okay, so now we're going to add a new workbook. Boom. And then we're going to capture the name of that new workbook, and we can see hovering over it's book 4. Then we're going to activate this workbook again. Again, we're just going to pick column A, and here we come to our first loop. So do while the active cell doesn't equal blank. So my temp is going to be the active cell value. So now we have the MPAN number. And now we're going to add a sheet to the new workbook. So workbooks my new workbook dot sheets add after workbooks my new workbook dot sheets open brackets workbooks my new workbook dot sheets dot count. Now it's important that you add this exactly as it appears in here, otherwise it will only count the number of sheets in the active workbook, not the new workbook you've just added. So we're just going to loop through, and this is now going through all of these and adding a tab to that new workbook for each of these particular MPAN numbers. And then I'm just going to come down to the bottom now. I'm going to debug and run that out. Run to cursor. So let's just have a quick look at that other sheet. If I can drag that into shot. So there you go. Now we have a unique sheet for each of those 11 entries, or 10 entries, whatever it was. So Alt and F11. In fact, let's bring the other sheet back up so we can watch what's happening. So there and there. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the start of A1. So we're now back at the top, and now we have the big loop that's going to write the data. So we're going to select A1 again, which we'll need to later, and we're going to get the name of the first MPAN. So my temp equals that, and my limit is going to read from here. So my limit is 365. Now I know what I'm looking for, and now I know how many entries I'm expecting to find. Sheets, sheet 1, select, go back to the data set, and here is the A loop. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go through all of the A's first. So A1 select, and it's a do loop while the active cell doesn't equal blank. So if the active cell doesn't equal my temp 3099, what we're going to do is move down one and loop, and now we'll find that that does equal that. And now what we're going to do is we're going to copy the entire row to workbooks, my new workbook, sheets, my temp, so we know we're going to get the right sheet. Again, we're going to go range A 1,000,000 and odd, go up and offset by 1. So if the sheet is blank, that's going to paste at A2. And I'm just going to scroll through. I'm going to move down a cell here, and I'm going to increase y by 1. So y equals y plus 1. So y is now worth 1 because we have copied and pasted once. Our limit is 365. So y doesn't equal 365. So we're just going to go through, and we're going to loop all the way until we get to my limit. So I'm just going to debug and step into that. Run to cursor. Any second now. This runs much quicker when the application screen updating is on, by the way. And there you go. So my limit now equals 365, and we have copied and pasted 365 times. So now what we're going to do is copy the headings. We're going to say range A1, here, the entire row .copy to workbooks, my new workbook, again sheet, my temp, which is the name of this MPAN, range A1, and that's going to put the heading straight across the top. Go to the next outer loop. That is going to skip the B loop, and that is going to skip the C loop, and it's going to come down to here, this label, next outer loop. We're going to reset Y, so Y is back to 0. We're going to go back to the scratch sheet, and we're going to delete the entire row. So now when we loop, A1 is the next MPAN. And I'm just going to run that all the way through until we get to, I think there's a B somewhere. So I'm just going to run that through until we get to here. So what that's going to do is run through the whole of column A, and it's going to constantly count every time we copy and paste until the number of times we copied and pasted matches the number of entries in that thing. Now I'm just going to pause the recording for a second until we get here, because without the screen updating on, this is going to take quite a while to run. So bear with me just 1 second. Okay, and welcome back. So now, if we look here, we can see that my limit is 365 for my temp, whatever that says, 1614 something or other. But Y is only 364. Therefore, we haven't found all 365 entries in column A. So now, what column B is an exact copy of the A loop, but instead of starting at A1, it starts at B1. It's as simple as that. So all we're going to do is loop through this. That doesn't appear to be moving down. Debug, run to cursor. It is moving down, but for some reason it's not showing on the screen. Not sure why that is. Anyway, so then we go to the next outer loop, because now my limit is 365 and Y is 365, and then we're just going to run that out until we get down to here. Again, I'm just going to pause for a second, because with the screen updating turned on, this is going to take a while to run through, so bear me a second. Okay, here we go, and we're back. So we've run through columns A, B and C, if appropriate, until we found all 365 matches. We're temporarily going to turn off the display alerts. Oops, here we go. Display alerts. We're going to delete the scratch sheet because we don't need it anymore. We're going to turn the alerts back on. We're going to select sheet 1, and we're going to go to range A1. And the file we've created, hang on, let me just end up. The file we've created looks like, looks like this. And this is the newly created file. And you can see, if I expand it, that we have a tab for each of those unique numbers. Now, with the application screen updating turned on, this runs through in about 20 or 30 seconds, something like that, but that's how you do it. As always, the code is available to download. Let me just close that, don't save. The code is available to download in this file, and it's all in here. And as always, if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next lecture.